What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into episode 239 of the CRW podcast, our Houston review and reaction. And yes, it's going to be a little bit more joyous because on Halloween weekend, West Virginia may have tricked Houston into thinking they were going to have a cakewalk of a game, but it was a treat for us Mountaineer fans to get to see West Virginia win their first Big 12 conference game of the year, beat a ranked team on the road. The list goes on. What a performance from West Virginia coming out, putting up 45 points. It was very impressive. The run game was working more so than it had in a long time, and of course, by far the most you scored on the road this season and matches your season total in general. So an absolute treat for Mountaineer Nation indeed on Halloween weekend. There is on November 1st. West Virginia takes down Houston 45-35, and that's what we're going to discuss throughout this episode. And hey, it's a victory, so we'll get to discuss name some players of the game here as well, which we haven't got to do in a few weeks. So looking forward to that as well. We're going to run through this thing. I'm going to give you guys just some of my thoughts. We're going to hit some interesting things of note, which I think there were several coming out of this game because there was a lot of firsts and such, and a lot of these compiled from the game notes there on the WVU sports site, but some really fun stuff to talk about. So we'll hit interesting things of note. We'll go over the stats. We'll name some players of the game. And then, of course, we'll go around the Big 12 in the final segment, recap the scores from Week 10. Hard to believe we're already Week 10 in the college football season, but just wrapped it up, and West Virginia wrapped it up in a big way with a big road win over a team that was in competition for the Big 12 conference title. And I think right away here, the one thing I want to lead off with is how impressed I've been with Rich Rod and his staff these past couple of weeks because, and I mentioned this in the past a little bit as well, it's so impressive that this staff has gotten the buy-in that they have at this point in the season. Because when you look at everything going on, all the injuries that you're dealing with on both sides of the ball, the outside noise, you're close to losing bowl eligibility. Still in contention at this point after the win over Houston. Do got to add that. But, all of those things could be something that would make a team collapse. It would make a softer team collapse, a team without a hard edge. But I think that this right here, this game against Houston and the competitiveness last week against TCU as well, two pretty strong teams in this conference, despite West Virginia being down to, fourth, fifth string at some positions even, they showed incredible fight, incredible resiliency, and I think that right there shows, if nothing else, that the culture is getting there for this staff. They've done a good job installing that culture, that hard edge mentality that they want. It's coming through for these players because they went out there and absolutely battled. I mean, you look at a guy like Dior Hubbard, nearly 30 carries on the day, and he could barely, walk after some of the runs, but when he was running hard. I think of the touchdown run he had late there that gave West Virginia their 45th point. Juking a couple of guys out of their shoes, runs into the end zone, and then as soon as he crosses the goal line, you can see him start to limp and barely be able to walk back up the sidelines. That's hard edge right there. Last week I mentioned it was a hard edge effort. This week it was a hard edge effort yet again for the Mountaineers, and this time they get it done, and it pays off with the 45-35 win. Offensively, I think the main standout thing is they were able to run the football. And I think West Virginia's found something on the left side of that offensive line with three guys that could all potentially return next season. Nick Cray, Donovan Haslam, and Landon Livingston. Donovan Haslam's been a bit of a revelation. He's been incredible in pass protection, and you saw him road grading a little bit on some run plays and even made the smart play, although it was illegal, to pull Dior Hubbard ahead for the first down, which is crazy to me that you can push a guy but you can't pull a guy. It doesn't make much sense to me. But either way, I'm not going to be mad about that because that's effort. That's what we want to see right there. Those are guys that want to win, and they showed that in this game. I mentioned Dior Hubbard, great effort from him. How about Sincere Bowers? Comes in, runs that nicely designed outside zone with the two tight ends leading him and some counter action going back the other way for some eye candy, and absolutely untouched on the first play, and then they run it again later in the game. He breaks off about 20 more yards. He ends up with over 60 yards rushing, which we'll talk about when we get to the stats, and I think that's what really impressed me, surprised me, shocked me, whatever you want to say, is the West Virginia, the way they were able to run the football in this game against the Houston defense that, I talked about it in our preview show, was a top 40 rushing defense in the country. And I think West Virginia knew after the performance they had last week, throwing for over 300 yards on TCU, and Houston knowing the struggles West Virginia had on the ground throughout the season, Houston probably said, you're not going to beat us throwing the football. We're going to make you beat us running the football. And West Virginia game planned for that, and they came out and said, we're going to do just that. You see Rich Rod talking in the post-game press conference about how he told Dior Hubbard they're going to need him to run hard. They're going to need to make Houston tackle him today, and he did that. I think the quote he said was he ran possessed, and that is absolutely true, man. Sometimes the holes were there, sometimes they weren't, but even when they weren't, Dior Hubbard was making people miss and forcing missed tackles on almost every time he touched the ball, which was fantastic. Scotty Fox, 2 big touchdown runs, and I think they both came in clutch situations, you could say. One near the goal line, keeps a read option. The other one on a 4th and 4 where he makes a great decision. It's a pre-snap read. Rich Rod talked about it, a pre-snap RPO, if you will, where you kind of read the numbers in the box and you decide, am I going to throw this? Am I going to run this? He's got receivers out on patterns. As you go back and look at that play, you can see he diagnoses they only got 4 guys in the box. We're going to run this. Boom, untouched to the end zone, 4th and 4, touchdown run. Scotty Fox made big plays in clutch time. I think you can't say enough about him. I mentioned, in the TCU review show that I did, that he really felt like the game slowed down for him in that one, and I think that continued in this game because this was the real test to me going up against the Houston defense that's very talented and has shown that throughout the season, and he was every bit as good as he was against TCU. Did he have the numbers passing? No, he didn't have the yardage, but he did have over 200 total yards, no turnovers for the second consecutive game, and not only that, no turnover-worthy plays even, according to PFF, which is super impressive for a true freshman that's really coming into his own here late in the season. And then, of course, Jeff Weimer continues his emergence, which has really helped Cam Vaughn. Cam Vaughn does what he does. Great touchdown grab. Almost had another long catch as well. Really love the emergence of Jeff Weimer because they cannot cover him one-on-one. He's shown that now in back-to-back weeks, and that helps because if they want to double-team Cam Vaughn, you might get Jeff Weimer loose on the other side. Rodney Gallagher with some big catches as well. Scotty Fox with an absolute BB on the post route that he threw to Rodney Gallagher down the field, fitting in between the corner and the safety. So I think you saw some good things from the offense overall. Now, was the offensive line perfect? No, it wasn't. They were very good in pass protection, and especially in the first, quarter or so of the game, that was the best they've probably blocked all season. Right there on some of those runs West Virginia was getting early in that game. For the first time since the Ohio game, West Virginia scored in the first quarter. Not only did they score in the first quarter, they scored a couple times in that first quarter and really had things rolling. I think they had over 150 yards of total offense in the first quarter. First game this season, they've had over 200 yards total offense at halftime, I do believe. So very impressive stuff from West Virginia in this game offensively. Something we all didn't necessarily expect, but hopefully it's just the tip of the iceberg and they can keep that rolling moving forward. Like I said, I think they found something on the left side of that offensive line. Right guard and right tackle. We'll see where they go with that moving forward. Kimo Makaniole was out, so they played Walter Youngbear, which I thought he played a little bit better at right guard than he had previously at left guard. Still some issues on that side. You go back, watch one play, we dropped back to pass, and you had Tykees Crawford back in at right tackle as well, and neither one of those guys blocked somebody, let him shoot straight through untouched. So that right side was a bit of an issue at times still, but I do think they found the answers on the left side. I'll be anxious to see if everyone's healthy for this upcoming game against Colorado, who starts at right guard and who starts at right tackle, and if that makes a difference moving forward. But at least we have a few offensive linemen that we believe we can count on and that are going to be back next year as well. I think that's big because if you have 3 offensive linemen, then you can go out and get you a handful of transfers to fill up the other spots, fill up the depth, and maybe even one of these young guys that you got sitting behind could potentially be a player in the future. I don't know. I think that they'll figure offensive line out. I think this game showed me that, and I think Rich Rod's starting to figure the offense out, and this team's starting to get comfortable with the system for sure. Defensively, I think you got to start it off. Got to eat a little bit of crow here, as I'm sure a lot of us do when discussing Jamori Robinson. Hadn't shown up, and then finally in this game, he definitely shows up. TFL, half a sack, recovered a fumble. He was two solo tackles, I believe, as well, which is 2 more than I think he had all season prior to this game. So shout out Jamori Robinson, man. Maybe it took a little bit longer than we would have liked, but looks like he's finally starting to come into his own and maybe start to be the player that we thought he could be here. And if he can be in these final few games of the season, that would be a huge boost to West Virginia. But was glad to see him making plays. And I think the main thing that stood out is for the second consecutive game, it had been a long time West Virginia wasn't able to get in the backfield. Now they did it. Multiple TFLs, multiple sacks, and yet again forcing multiple turnovers, which we know is Zach Alley's goal. And, if you're going to pull an upset, you're going to have to get some of those turnovers. And West Virginia had done a pretty decent job of getting turnovers this year, but they hadn't been able to convert them into points. To me, that was one big difference in this game because I remember they showed a graphic during the game, and it was 45-28 at one point. So 17-point lead for West Virginia, and they had 17 points off turnovers at that point as well. So, one hand feeds the other on that, and I think that's the big difference in this one. West Virginia had done a pretty good job this season forcing turnovers, but they hadn't capitalized on them. This game, they capitalized on nearly every single one of those turnovers they got, save for the last one, which they were able to, seal the game with, which was a special teams play. So defense, overall, you do give up 35 points. They let Houston climb back in it, but that was probably going to happen. I think what's more important is that this team weathered Houston's fight back into it and then managed to find a way to come back and still win the football game. Because, it's 31-28. Houston's driving. West Virginia's only up 3. Boom, Jordy Scruggs jumps the ball, pick 6. So not only did we get the turnovers in this game and get the points off turnovers, we get something we've all been clamoring for all season is, hey, can the defense score some points? Actually, we might need them to. And they did pull that off in this game. So shout out to the offense, shout out to the defense. And then special teams, man. Special teams, been a bit of a mixed bag this season, but in this game, I think it really was a positive for West Virginia. Nate Flower handling kickoffs has done a really good job there, getting touchbacks for the Mountaineers as the kickoff specialist. Cade Hensley with a season-long, it might be a career too, I'm not sure. I know it's his longest year at WVU, a 50-yard field goal, which was big in this game. And then, of course, the big play is how about Ollie Straw making it happen there, hitting a Houston defender on the punt. Of course, I think that's more probably on the lackadaisicalness. Is that a word? Or the Houston blocker being a little bit lackadaisical, I guess would be a better way to put that. But blocked up with the West Virginia defender, and I don't know if the Houston return man didn't call it. You're supposed to signal to your teammates to get away from that, but either way, it works out for West Virginia. Punt hits that guy's leg. Mountaineers recover, able to knee this thing out and call it a ball game. So I think what we saw in this game for the first time all season probably was a bit of complementary football. Defense helping the offense, getting some turnovers, getting the ball back to them. Offense helping the defense because they were able to finally sustain drives, get first down, so you're not just going up tempo and getting a tired defense back out on the field. That helped. And then, of course, special teams doing their part. Long field goal, forcing a turnover on special teams. Complimentary football all the way around for West Virginia, and that's how you pull off a defeat of a ranked team and on the road nonetheless. Super happy to have West Virginia pull that off. So just kind of some of my thoughts there that I wanted to run through, just some stream of consciousness stuff, which brings us to the next segment here, and I'm happy to bring this one back. Went over this a lot last year. It's interesting things of note. Let's talk about some from this game. Most of these pulled from the game notes over on the WVU Sports website, but a lot of firsts in this game and a lot of firsts in a long time, I guess you could say, in this game. So as we mentioned in the preview show, only the second all-time meeting with Houston. West Virginia gets their lick back. 1-1 now against Houston after falling back in 2023, and maybe we'll finally get them to come to Morgantown in the future, and we can make that 2-1 against Houston. But all tied up now, 1 win for Houston, 1 win for West Virginia in this series. This was the first win versus an AP-ranked team for West Virginia since 2021, which we remember that game was the win on actually Halloween weekend as well over Iowa State back then in 2021. And then I know I've seen some discrepancy about this, about it being the first ranked road win since 2018, but the WVU Sports site categorizes it as so. It's the first AP-ranked road win since 2018. I know West Virginia beat Kansas State on the road in 2019, and they were ranked, but they were not ranked in the AP poll. So this is the first time West Virginia's beaten a ranked team on the road that was ranked in the AP poll since 2018. And, of course, that was the Will Grier, Gary Jennings, Texas game. You want to go win the game, let's go win the game. And this is the first time West Virginia's beaten a ranked team on the road that was ranked in the AP poll since then. Also, Marsh Richrod's first ever Big 12 win at WVU. Plenty more to come, but got the first one in the bag. Finally, West Virginia notches their first conference win of the season. Mentioned West Virginia forced 4 turnovers in the game, and that is the most forced in a game since 2023, back when they forced the same number there against UCF. This is the third time this season, though, that WVU has forced 3 turnovers in a single game, which is good. I mean, Zach Alley probably liked that number to be a little bit higher because he wants 3 turnovers in every game, but at least they're getting it done somewhat this season, and you're getting that culture instilled a little bit as well, that we want 3 turnovers per game, and you've done that multiple times now this year, and let's hope they can do it again down the stretch in these final games as well. WVU held their opponent under 100 yards rushing. in back-to-back games now. They held TCU under 100 yards rushing and now held Houston under 100 yards rushing as well. First time they've done that this season. Fox with the 2 rushing touchdowns there, as we mentioned, Scotty Fox crossing the goal line twice with his legs, and that is tied for the most rushing touchdowns by a true freshman quarterback in WVU history. Only one other one to do it was Freddie Wyatt back in 1952. And then Fox's 3 total touchdowns are the most ever for a true freshman quarterback in program history. That's right, 3 total touchdowns by a true freshman quarterback. First time it's ever been done at WVU, and Scotty Fox does it against a ranked team, and does it on the road. And then lastly, the 80-yard pick six by Jordy Scruggs was the longest interception return for a WVU defender since 2017, when Kenny Robinson took one back 94 yards against the Texas Longhorns. So there's some interesting things of note from the game. Now let's go ahead and let's get into the stats review. A little bit better to go over the stats after a win for sure, and also we get to select players of the game. Been a while since we've done that. We only like to do it after wins. So let's run down the team stats here. Then we'll get into the individual stats and pick some players of the game at that point. So team stats-wise in this one, 20 first downs for West Virginia. Not quite to the goal of 25 that Rich Rod wants, but right up there on it, and you still get it done with only 20. 20 first downs for West Virginia, 26 for Houston. Third down efficiency, West Virginia was 5 of 17, not the best there. That's one area we could still afford some improvement, but we were 4 for 4 on fourth downs. So that number can be a little bit deceiving because some of those, you're going for it on fourth anyway. So, but 4 of 4 on fourth is really good for the Mountaineers. Houston was 2 of 2 on fourth down and 5 of 12 on third downs. Total yards, nearly even. West Virginia barely edges out Houston, 403 total yards of offense to 400 for the Cougars, which is well above what Houston's been giving up this season. So West Virginia's offense, yet again, doing a great job. 157 yards passing for the Mountaineers, 318 for Houston. Houston did throw 2 interceptions, West Virginia with 0. 246 yards rushing for the Mountaineers. How about that? On a Houston defense that had not been giving up nearly that at all. Like we mentioned in the previous show, it was a top 40 rushing defense in the country coming into this game, and West Virginia found a way to run the football to nearly 5 yards per carry. And as I mentioned, holding Houston under 100, only 82 yards rushing for the Cougars. West Virginia 8 penalties to Houston's 2. Would love to clean that up a little bit, but you win the turnover battle plus 4. 4 turnovers for Houston, 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions, and 0 turnovers for the Mountaineers. And time of possession, nearly dead even. 30 minutes, 30 seconds for West Virginia, 29 minutes, 30 seconds for Houston. Let's go individual stats here, and then we can name some players of the game in this one. So, as I mentioned, Scotty Fox, 157 yards passing, 13 of 22 on the day, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 95 quarterback rating. Pretty good there. And then the rushing right here. Multiple guys getting it done to lead to that 246 yards rushing that we talked about. But Dior Hubbard, man, how about him battling through 29 carries, 108 yards, and a touchdown. Scotty Fox, 10 carries, 65 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then Sincere Bowers, 9 carries, also 65 yards, and a touchdown. Clay Ash added 2 carries for 14 yards of his own. And, as I point out these numbers, I think it's good to point out we talked about that left side of the offensive line having a chance to return, which is true. But also, a lot of these guys that are making plays for you down the stretch here are going to be returning and returning with possibly multiple years remaining if you can retain them. Dior Hubbard, freshman. Scotty Fox, freshman. Sincere Bowers, sophomore. Cam Vaughn, sophomore. So, a lot of these guys will have a chance to return for the Mountaineers. As we go to the receivers, Jeff Weimer, another great day. I mean, he had 2 or 3 steps on a guy on a go ball and caught a big play on it. West Virginia drew him off sides, took a shot, and Jeff Weimer absolutely cooked a guy. Second straight week he's done that, and hopefully he keeps that up. 3 catches, 67 yards for Mr. Weimer. 5 catches, 53 yards for Rodney Gallagher in the slot. Cam Vaughn's only catch on the day was that 24-yard touchdown, but man, it was impressive. Being held by one arm, catching it with the other arm. No pass interference penalty, no problem, because he's in the end zone for 6. Cam Vaughn continues to impress. 2 receptions, 5 yards for Dior, and a catch apiece for Ryan Ward and Clay Ash. We'll go ahead and name our offensive player of the game here. Like I said, plenty of ways you can go. Dior Hubbard, incredible game. Scotty Fox, incredible game. I think I'm going to decide between those two. Who do I want to give it to? I'm going to give it to Scotty, man. I know Dior ran his tail off. 29 carries is super impressive. First 100-yard rusher since Ty Edwards in the game against Pitt. Only, second time this season, or second or third time this season, I do believe West Virginia's had a 100-yard rusher. I think it's only the second, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm going to go with Scotty just because the quarterback position's been such a carousel this year for West Virginia. And just the fact that he's a true freshman doing what he's doing and looking the most impressive of the offense and has the offense playing its best football of the season here late. I know the numbers don't necessarily blow you away, but 3 touchdowns, no turnovers is huge, especially on the road. And he is doing a great job of executing the offense, taking what the defense is giving him, making the plays that are there. And I think what I've been most impressed with, especially this week, was the way that he's reading things. There's nearly a read on every single play in this offense, whether it's pre-snap, post-snap, what have you. Scotty Fox has made the right decision on those reads more often than not, and without him playing the way that he's played the past couple of weeks, West Virginia probably wouldn't have been in that game against TCU, and I don't know if they'd have won this game on the road without Scotty Fox. So the true freshman, not only doing some stuff for you here late this season, but giving you a lot of hope for the future and what his potential could possibly be, because you got to think, man, you're just scratching the surface right now. So I'm going to go Scotty Fox as my player of the game on offense. Let's talk defensive stats here. We talked about Jamoy Robinson with the fumble recovery, McGuire Moss, the long snapper, recovering the fumble on the punt there that West Virginia forced. Fred Perry, yet again, an absolute force. Look at these numbers. 13 total tackles, with 9 of them being solo. 1 sack, 2 TFLs. Reed Carrico had 6 tackles. Izzy Boyce with the pass deflection and 4 tackles. You get a TFL from Ben Bogle. You get a TFL and a sack from Devin Grant. Second straight week Devin Grant's gotten a sack. This week it was a strip sack. I think that Houston recovered it, but nonetheless a strip sack this week from Devin Grant, who back-to-back weeks has gotten in for a sack. Jamoy Robinson and Corey McIntyre Jr., 2 guys we've been hoping to come on that defensive line, one in his final year with Jamoy and then one with hopefully a bright future we've heard about for a long time. And Corey McIntyre both get half a tackle for loss, half a sack. And, of course, Jamoy with a pass deflection as well, a PBU for Jamoy Robinson, which stood out. I'd love to give it to Jamoy just because he finally came on in this game as my player of the game on defense. But I think you got to go Fred Perry as player of the game on defense. And I know he's someone that you could probably give it to every single game, but those numbers are pretty impressive. 13 tackles, 9 solo, 2 TFLs, and the sack that he had was very nice, blitzing off the edge there. We brought that a couple of times in this game, and it nearly paid off both times. I hope we continue to bring Fred Perry on some blitzes more often because I like the way that looked. And, man, he was flying all over the field as he always tends to do. So Fred Perry is my player of the game on defense. As we wrap up the stats talk here from West Virginia's 45-35 win over Houston, with, of course, talking about the interceptions, Jordy Scruggs with the 80-yard pick six, huge play that really maybe was the nail in Houston's coffin. And then Derek Carter, how about the interception that he had? Michael Coates, good coverage on the play, bats the ball down, but when he bats it down, bats it off his own foot, and Derek Carter intercepts it and runs it back a decent ways there. So definitely got to shout out those 2 guys forcing the interceptions as well, or coming up with the interceptions rather, as West Virginia forces 4 turnovers in a game. It's a big reason West Virginia gets the 45-35 win on the road over the Houston Cougars. No longer winless in Big 12 play. West Virginia's got a Big 12 conference win and got some momentum coming down the stretch for these final few games of the season, as West Virginia now moves to 3-6 overall, 1-5 in the Big 12 conference following that game. And we got some hope, we got some excitement, and I think we'll have a good crowd for the home game against Colorado. Now another game which West Virginia, don't look now, but they're finally favored in a game. We didn't think it would happen. And just yet again, before I wrap up with the Around the Big 12 segment, just want to say shout out to this coaching staff, keeping these players locked in, keeping everyone balled in, and going out and have a performance like that, and hopefully they can replicate that next Saturday at home in front of a home crowd that's going to be excited because they have some pieces that they can believe in and some hope for the future now, which is awesome, man. It was so awesome watching that on Saturday, and shout out to you channel members there at the Almost Heaven level that tuned in with us there for the game watch along. One of the most fun game watch alongs we've had in quite some time there for an away game, as West Virginia pulls off the win. A lot of fun moments from that one. So we appreciate you guys there at the Almost Heaven level. If you want to help contribute to us that way here on our YouTube channel, you can hit the join button down in our video description here on the Country Roads Webcast or on our YouTube channel homepage. Helps keep this mic recording, keep that camera rolling, helps me pay the bills, feed the family, all that good stuff. So really appreciate our channel members here, and they get the bonus content like the game watch-alongs for the away games, behind-the-scenes content. They'll get early access to this episode, get to watch it unedited and such like that, in addition to priority access in comments and chats, custom emojis, helmet badges, film reviews, player grades, snap counts, all kinds of fun stuff there if you become a channel member. We appreciate you guys. But shout out to you guys that tune in and just subscribe here, which doesn't cost you anything, to hit that subscribe button here on the channel. Get all this WVU sports info directly into your feed. If you do tune in here on YouTube, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. Help us out with that crazy algorithm. And appreciate our friends over at WVSportsNow.com for hosting our episodes on their website as well. And can't forget you guys that do tune in on the audio side. That's how I take in most of my podcasts, so I understand that. But you can find us on any platform, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it. Just search Country Roads Webcast. Follow us there. And if you listen to us on the audio side, leave us a rating. That helps us out on that side of things. Appreciate you guys. And with that, we will get to our final segment here of episode 239 as we like to wrap things up with the Around the Big 12. We're going to recap the scores here from Week 10 in the conference. And, of course, West Virginia with the upset early, 45-35 over Houston, as we just discussed. Let's go. And then Baylor 30-3 over UCF. Kind of as I expected Baylor to get the win there. Wasn't expecting them to dominate that much, but they get it done 30-3 in that game in Waco. And then Arizona State. How about Arizona State pulling it off over Iowa State 24-19? You know, I was a little bit worried about Arizona State's chances in this game with it being in Ames, without Sam Leavitt, without Jordan Tyson as well, I believe. But Jeff Sims, how about the backup coming in there running for over 200 yards in this game? That was impressive, and it helps Arizona State win 24-19 on the road in Ames. And Arizona State not out of the mix for potentially making the Big 12 title game now. They do have that big win over Texas Tech. So we'll see how that plays out down the stretch as, you know, they don't have Sam Leavitt, but Jeff Sims looks like he may be able to lead this offense. We'll see what happens. Sam Leavitt out for the season. And keep in mind, West Virginia plays them in a couple of weeks in Tempe as well. 24-19 win for the Sun Devils over the Cyclones. And then we have Texas Tech, 43-20 over Kansas State. 23-point win. You know, and this game was close at times, but Texas Tech just pulled away late, man. And I just continue to feel like they're the best team in this conference. They just look head and shoulders above, in my opinion. And that, of course, is the senior day matchup for West Virginia to close the season. Have to bring our A game for that one, but at least it's in Morgantown. And we'll see what Texas Tech does in the meantime, in between time, as they try and get to that Big 12 championship game as well, and possibly further in their season. 43-20 win over Kansas State. Kansas handles Oklahoma State 38-21 in Lawrence. No surprise there. Oklahoma State still searching for that elusive first conference win that West Virginia was finally able to grab as they fall 38-21. But what's interesting is Oklahoma State may be last place in the conference, but right now they're not playing the worst football in the conference. That's actually Colorado, who West Virginia plays this upcoming week, which, of course, just our luck. They switch quarterbacks this upcoming week. They're going to be starting the freshmen against West Virginia. They'll probably have a resurgence after having two really, really back-to-back bad games where they've been outscored, I think, 90-something to like 14 or 90-something to 7 in the first halves of these games. We mentioned last week how rough it was when they had like negative 18 yards at halftime. Not much better against Arizona, and you know, they were at home, so I thought they'd be a little bit more competitive, but Arizona absolutely slaughters Colorado 52-17. I believe it's the second consecutive game they've given up 50-plus points. So you can see why West Virginia's favored all of a sudden against Colorado, but we can't count our chickens before they hatch. Just because they've had back-to-back bad games doesn't mean it's going to be a cakewalk for us on Saturday. Still have to bring it the same way we brought it against Houston on the road if we want a chance to pull that one off, and we'll preview that later in the week here and have that coming to you guys with the Colorado Preview and Predictions podcast later this week. But they're coming off a 52-17 loss to Arizona. And then our game of the week this week was the nightcap, and hey, Steven's not on this episode, and you know why? Because he knew I was right about this one. He didn't want to have to talk about Utah beating Cincinnati, beating the brakes off Cincinnati, matter of fact, 45-14 in our game of the week. Because if you guys remember, me and Steven were in agreement on all the picks until this night game, until our game of the week. I took Utah, he took Cincinnati, so finally I get to bask in the glory of being right. Seems like Steven's been right a lot all season on these Around the Big 12 segments, but it's one that I didn't necessarily want to be right about because I'd have rather seen Cincinnati win, but Utah with the big win, 45-14, taking down Cincinnati. So a couple of teams that were at that top portion of the Big 12 potentially looking to reach a Big 12 title game fell on Saturday with us taking down Houston and Cincinnati dropping as well to Utah 45-14 in Salt Lake. So there it is, the scores in Week 10 of the conference. As we get closer and closer to settling who's going to play in the Big 12 title game, we'll continue to keep you guys up to date on that in our Around the Big 12 segments here to close out these podcast episodes. But I guess that will pretty much do it for episode 239 here, the Houston Review and Reaction. Appreciate you guys tuning into this one. It was a fun one to talk about. So glad to get to come back here and talk about a West Virginia victory, and an impressive one at that. And now we got a good matchup for us, I think, on Saturday against Colorado. Should have a great crowd in tow, and can't wait to talk about that game later this week as well. And really excited about what this team is doing down the stretch, showing some hard edge, showing some potential for the future with some guys that can return if you can retain them. And I think all things are looking up. All things are looking up, and maybe we're starting to turn a corner here in this Rich Rod 2.0 era. It kind of has that feeling, doesn't it? Let's hope so. Let's hope so moving forward, and I think brighter days are on the horizon, both at the end of this season maybe, and definitely moving forward here in this Rich Rod 2.0 era as we start to look ahead to that as we get close to wrapping up this season. But still plenty more games to talk about, and we're going to enjoy each one of them down the stretch here and enjoy chatting with you guys about them as well. But to wrap this one, West Virginia 45-35 over Houston, gets their first conference win, beats a ranked team on the road. I love it. You love it. Let's keep it rolling on Saturday against Colorado back in Morgantown. Can't wait to be up there for what should be an exciting game with a really nice environment. But having said that, guys, talk to you all again soon. As always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.
If you really want to know, then come on, let's go. Take a stroll down those